So, what am I doing here? Welcome to Gaston's Great. Man, I don't know if I had a brain fart there or something. So, Gaston County, welcome to episode number 153, if you can believe that, of Gaston's Great, a podcast we continue to highlight great things happening in and around Gaston County. I'm your host, Stephen Long. We are coming to you once again from the international headquarters of GSM Services right here in downtown Gastonia. We simply believe in discussing more of the reasons why Gaston's great. Now, you would think I've never done this before. I don't know why. I just got completely discombobulated. So, we are highlighting, once again, the Gaston Arts Council. And we have Jessica Tillman, and I'm going to embarrass myself because, Stephanie, I have forgotten your last name. Newman. I am so sorry. So, we have Jessica Tillman and Stephanie Newman with us today. And, Jessica, are you still considered the administrator?
Yes, I'm
Okay.
still
Arts administrator. Okay. And Stephanie, you are a board member, or how would you? What is your title?
I am currently serving as board chair.
Okay, board chair. Very good. So, Jessica and Stephanie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So, for those of our listeners maybe who aren't familiar with our guests in the Arts Council, first, I'll just start with you, Stephanie, real quick. Just give us a little bit of background on yourself and anything that you'd like to share.
So I just have always been a creative. I'm a maker and a singer, and a community builder, and that's, thing that I really find myself leaning into. So that's kind of how I found myself with the Arts Council, is just the love of art and the love of creating space for art.
Are you originally here from Gaston County or from elsewhere?
I am from elsewhere. I am from just up the road in Virginia.
Okay.
But have been in Gaston County for about 15 years now.
All right. Well, so we'll take that as you're a Gastonia.
Okay.
Now, right.
Okay. Long enough to see a lot of the changes.
Absolutely. Jessica, how about you?
Let's see. So I'm an actress and a voice actor. So this is very normal to me to have the headphones on and stuff. And I'm from Charlotte. I still live in Charlotte. I still work remote and still learning a lot about Gaston County.
Like I probably said this before.
What?
We won't hold that against you.
Thank you. Thank you. And what else? I mean, I have a background in political science for undergrad and went to school for teaching English as a second language. And I've been acting, though, for like 10 years.
Okay.
I didn't believe it.
So how did you both how did you get involved with Gaston Arts Council?
I started as administrative assistant. It was through a referral, and then the executive director left, and I became in charge of the grant process and in the organization. So yeah.
Stephanie, what brought you to the Arts Council?
Again, really just through a series of like networking and meeting folks. It's one of those almost like, hey, we need somebody. You're gonna hang out with us now. And so really just kind of got pulled in.
So many things like this happen like that. I mean, that's just the way it is. Networking, who you know, and hey, you look like you could help us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come help.
Yeah.
So I came to help and then stayed. Yeah.
Stephanie has been great since like day one.
Okay.
Like we're like, oh, she's good.
Well, listen, every organization has to have people like that. I mean, otherwise work doesn't happen, right?
Right.
Somebody has to step up and do it. So, again, one other question before we kind of get into what's been happening the last year and a half to 2 years. For those, I have some listeners who aren't familiar with the Arts Council, so kind of maybe just give us a quick mission, a shortened version. If anybody wants to know really detailed about the history, you can go back to I think it was episode number 110. I did look that up beforehand. Just what is the Arts Council? What's your mission? And then, then we'll get into kind of giving us some updates.
Yeah. I usually say, first off, we partner with the NC Arts Council to distribute the Grassroots Arts Program grant to provide high-quality education to citizens in Gaston County. And then I'll bump it over to Stephanie to talk about our mission and vision, because, that's usually what I manage and distribute is the grant process.
Okay.
Yeah, so as the Gaston Arts Council, for the last few years, as Jessica mentioned, our focus has been working with the NC Arts Council on that grassroots grant program. But, as we're rebuilding, we're really shifting our mission to, not only that focus, which serves high quality programming and high quality arts education, but to really just combining and serving the greater Charlotte, or not greater Charlotte, greater Gaston County area. We're such a large county.
Well, we're part of Greater Charlotte too.
Well, but we're really focused on Gaston.
Even though I have to remind everybody, Charlotte is the gateway to Gastonia.
It is.
You weren't aware of that,
Yeah.
Jessica?
I was.
Okay. At least Saturday Night Live says so.
But really serving as a connector, a promoter, and an advocator for the arts within Gaston County. And so, we have a lot of great arts organizations that are doing amazing work. But how we get the folks in Belmont, talking about what's going on in Cherryville, and how we get the folks in, Gastonia finding out about the arts that's happening in Mount Holly. And so that's really where our mission is really aligning, is to, make sure that we have quality arts that folks know about within Gaston County.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, because one of the reasons we started this, we didn't really plan it this way. We just wanted to talk about positive things. But what we've learned is there's a lot of well-kept secrets in Gaston County. I mean, there's groups of people that know about these things, but can we expand that to your point about what's going on in Belmont and Cherryville and Mount Holly and Bessemer City, or whatever the case may be. So so I appreciate that for any listeners who might not be familiar with it. So,
and I also wanted to quickly add, we also promote the Artist Support Grant through Arts and Science Council. So that's a grant that provides funding to individual artists. And so that's really important. This year, we were the second highest applicant pool, but also second highest awarded in the county, in the region as well. And so that's important to also support artists. And we do artist development workshops as well this year, and Mornings with Heart program. And so that's where people get together and talk about the arts and share what they're doing, and just to share ideas and for us to figure out what the needs are also.
Very good. All right. So you may have just touched on a couple of things in those comments. So what has been going on in the last year and a half? I know there's been some forward motion, maybe, for lack of a better term. That's probably an engineering type term, so sorry. But yeah, so what's been going on? Where are you guys headed? I know there were some specific reasons I think we want to get back together, some things you've had going on, but yeah, let's just share anything and everything you want to share. So here's your opportunity to talk about it.
Yeah. So, we're really excited. We are definitely making that forward motion. Right now I've been using the analogy that we're like on the roller coaster, and we're, on that part where you just keep getting clicked up to the top. So we haven't, maybe quite reached the crest, but, we're on our way there.
It's a little scary.
That that anticipation, the anticipation of what's coming, right?
Yeah. But I think, we've really been focusing this last year and a half on just rebuilding connections with, folks that are sub-grantees, getting back out into just the different municipalities and talking with folks, and really kind of getting an understanding of what that, arts landscape looks like in Gaston County. And so I think, that was one of the biggest things, was realizing how, we're very fortunate that we have so much. So there are a lot of arts councils where they may be the only point of arts, within their community. And we kind of realize, like, we don't have to be that. We just have to support the folks that are doing it.
Right.
And so that's where, we've really tailored a lot of the things that we're doing. Jessica mentioned, workshops that are more geared towards a little bit more business development. So, helping artists learn how to market themselves. Same with organizations. I think they're beneficial for artists and organizations. How to talk about their work, how to reach out to galleries, that sort of thing. And then also, as Jessica mentioned, just the Mornings with Heart that we're doing, which is just a monthly coffee meetup for artists and arts organizations. Because again, everybody's living on their own islands. I think we were talking earlier about how everybody's so busy these days, right? And you just get caught up in doing your own thing. But providing space for folks to come together and really understand and talk about, what other folks are doing. To bounce ideas and just have that sense of community.
Where does the coffee, when does that occur?
So usually it's the first Thursday of each month. It depends on when that falls. So this month, we had it yesterday because the first we were like, wow, I think it may just snuck up on everybody.
Right, sure.
Yeah. And I think January too, we had moved it to the second. So typically the first Thursday of each month.
And where at?
It moves.
Okay.
So we're trying to move around the county, and have it at different favorite shops, so that again, folks in Bessemer City can at least make it out to one.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's a good idea.
If you have your favorite coffee shop you want to let us know about, we can host one there.
Okay. Actually, I'm not a coffee drinker.
You're not a coffee drinker? Okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, huh? Yes. Yeah, we have lots of coffee drinkers here, but I used to drink coffee, but anyway.
Yeah.
Moving on. So what else? So what else? What other initiatives or big things are happening with the Arts Council?
We've also revamped our website and offer a membership program as well.
Okay.
We offer from student memberships, artist memberships, and also arts and culture memberships. And those benefits are, having access to our workshops after they've been recorded, and then member spotlights, so artist spotlights as well, newsletters, first notice on grant opportunities and other paid opportunities, and then we are working on our artist directory as well. We've noticed that organizations kind of want to have we need this specific artist, so we want to have a directory where people can go on and find people easily and send them a message and reach out to them. And so what else do we have on our website? We're working on volunteer opportunities and having access to our past newsletters. And so I feel like memberships is definitely a really
Would
important
that
part
feel the
to show
best place to go for people to communicate with you guys directly, or social media still, or
Well,
if somebody wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way?
Either way, yeah. So,
Okay.
gastonarts.org is the website, and we have a contact us form there, where folks can reach out, or following us at Gaston Arts NC on Instagram, and sending us a direct message there. We're pretty active, at least checking messages.
yeah. I mean,
Okay.
and people can also reach out to me directly, gac@gastonarts.org.
Okay.
We've just onboarded an administrative assistant, and so we're really happy to get that support as well. So admin@gastonarts.org is her email address. But yeah.
And then I think, the biggest thing that we've got coming up, we've been working really hard. So, everything that we've learned this past year and a half, and all of the conversations that we've had, and all of the, great things that are happening, we realized that there wasn't like one central unifying thing that brought all of these folks together.
Okay.
So we are going to be hosting on June 12th, the Arts Gaston Showcase is what we're calling it. And so that is going to be a time for everyone we have, I think it's about 15 or 16, 17, somewhere around there, arts organizations currently committed. You always have a few holdouts.
Oh, sure.
They're artists, Sometimes that artistic brain says squirrel. Happens to me too all the time. But that's going to be, an opportunity for the organizations to come out and to table where folks can come out and learn more about what arts initiatives are happening, through each of these organizations. And we're, trying to highlight everyone there. So it's going to be, I think it's $25 for our members and $35 for folks that are not members of our organization. Again, trying to get folks to, show their support for the arts by becoming a member.
This is June 12th.
It's June 12th.
And the location
is going to be Muddy River.
Okay.
Yep. And
that's a great location.
Yeah. So tickets will include, one drink and some light bites, and then getting to kind of network with folks, and just, an opportunity for arts supporters to come out and really learn, what's happening, and get to know all of the amazing organizations that we have.
All right. So I'm going to kind of stick to that, but also go back to one of your first comments. You mentioned that maybe artists, and I think it's not just artists, but I can see artists being maybe more into or not being able to promote themselves enough. Maybe that's the right word.
Mm-hmm.
So do you find that in your world that is maybe one of the biggest issues, that they want to be able to focus on the art, but if nobody hears about it, nobody knows about it, then it's just, is there a big gap there on how that goes, and maybe why you're having an event like you're talking about? Or am I overstating that?
What I hear from artists is they don't feel comfortable promoting themselves
Sure.
and creating content. I feel like they focus on the art and they're like, this is my baby and this is my thing. And
that's
then like,
human nature.
but I don't
afraid.
deal with social media
Yeah.
or like
Well, you know,
promoting
in
themselves.
general, most people have a little humility about themselves, and when you try to promote yourself, it seems like that can be a little, what's the word? Just a little. Yeah, frankly, even at GSM, right? I even after 30 years, I still struggle to promote GSM from like personally. Now, our marketing division with Naomi and Amy, I mean, they do a great job with that, but I find myself not maybe even talking enough about it. I'm the owner, right? And it's kind of strange, but that's true. So I would kind of feel I think that's a human nature thing for most people.
Yeah.
Because some of the personalities that go along with people who promote themselves too much, that can be that can cause the opposite reactions, right? It is too much.
And I think we're realizing we have to get out there and like do presentations and like meet people and talk about what we do in order to get our name out. So it is kind of uncomfortable. You're like, this is what we do. You know what I mean? I completely understand that. Yeah. But
that's one reason I say we have a lot of well-kept secrets here. Because a lot of these organizations, they don't have marketing departments. That's not their background, right? And so it takes things like this. Your willingness to come on here for, the two people that are listening will at least hear about it, right? Besides Naomi and I and my mother. So is this an all-day event? What's the timing on that?
So it's just an evening. It's 6 to 9 p.m.
Okay.
Yep, just a little like kind of cocktail hour evening where folks can come out again and just like learn about all the things happening and support the arts. I think, our vision, this is the first year we're doing it.
Sure.
So I think, we are starting out with kind of highlighting the arts organizations, the arts nonprofits that we, work with on a regular basis. But, I really see this as a, year over year event. Where, it just gets bigger and where we're able to do, a little bit more to highlight the arts every year and really bring in like, more artists and things like that. So we definitely hope that we'll have artists that come out and mingle and network with each other to meet folks. But the tabling portion will be the arts organizations, at least for this year.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'll just promote too. I've been to Muddy River a few times. It's a great location. So listeners, if you haven't been there and interested in that type of thing, it's a great, it's a great place to check something out like that. So again, I appreciate you sharing that. So, we've talked a little bit about the last year and a half with the organization. So, I mean, what's next for the organization? You looking out? I think I asked this question a year and a half, 2 years ago. What's the next few years look like? Is it just expanding? Is it getting over the top of the roller coaster? I mean, what's next?
Yes, I think that the most important thing for us is capacity building.
Okay.
Expanding our team so that we can serve the community better, so that we can get out and have more collaborations, because it's been a struggle. I'm a part-time staff member. Stephanie has been working 30 hours for free,
Wow.
So we do need a bigger team in order to do more, and also to find more resources, like find more support from, I would, just funding support, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Because we need to be able to run our organization and function, and also have more funding for artists as well, to provide that support, and also for art organizations too.
It would be great if we could do things like this without having to worry about the funding and financial side.
Yes.
But you have to.
You have to.
Yeah. And so I would also, when I was younger, I had this, I don't know, this altruistic vision of, oh yeah, we can do all these things, Well, you can't without support, without funding, without volunteers, without.
Yes.
So when you say a team, are you talking about staff or more board members? What specifically are you talking about there?
I think both. So we're working with Gaston College right now for the administrator that we have. So that's an amazing program that we are able to.
Gaston College.
Yeah, no, Gaston College, great. Yeah.
And then,
well, it's good to have partners like that where you can access, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Having those resources, within our county is huge. So I think, we definitely have space like on our board. We're really looking for folks. I think sometimes there can be the thought that like everybody that sits on an arts council board is an artist.
Right.
But, like you said, we're artists, and, we don't always have the financial brains and the, legal brains and things like that. And so having folks that are accountants and having folks that are lawyers and having folks that have, wide ranges of experience that
Somebody that can write grants, somebody that can has fundraised for another organization or something like that.
Yeah. And so having folks like that, maybe don't do art in their everyday lives, but want, to be able to support the arts and to utilize their expertise for the betterment of the arts is, the folks that we are looking for to do that. We're currently at a board of 7. We're hoping to be between 11 and 15. We'd really like to see all of the different municipalities of Gaston County represented. So we kind of want to make sure that we have a good, diverse board that really speaks to the experiences of folks across the county.
Okay, so if somebody's out there listening, they have a mild interest in the arts, or they're looking for something that's tugging on them. I want to get involved. I'm not currently involved in anything. What would be, what would be the ideal person that knocked on the door that said, I want to be a board member, or I want to volunteer, or how can I help? What's the ideal person? Or is it just exactly what you just described already, and I'm just repeating myself?
Yeah, I think specifically, we definitely need someone with accounting experience and a legal background right now. That would be the ideal person to knock on our door. And also just honestly, if you have different like various backgrounds, that would be great, right? We need someone with a health background, or we need someone who has connections within the community that we may not have. And so we've already connected with some wonderful folks. And so sometimes I think a lot of the great people don't have a lot of time already. They're already involved. But we're open to advisory board members as well. We need those folks.
Okay.
And so, we need people to serve on committees. And it's also a thing too. So.
I think, it's obviously we have a couple of roles that we really need to fill, but it's really just somebody that's passionate, that wants to get out and do the work. Right now, because we are still in a growing process, we're a working board. And so somebody that has the capacity to go out and be an ambassador for the Arts Council and to, put some boots on the ground and shake hands and make, connections is, really just that willingness to do that, and the love of art and the love for supporting art.
Yeah.
So when I think I may have asked a similar question when we talked previously. So here I am, the engineer, technical guy who, my concept of art is a drafting drawing table, right? Or CAD. It's CAD drawing. Yeah. So what's going on? What's the most popular art or form of here in Gaston County? What are y'all seeing? What, are people moving in here for certain reasons? What are they looking for? Or just, is that the dumbest question ever? Or does that,
some examples of art outside of a picture? Because I don't.
so you're like me, art to you mean somebody's painting a picture or doing a sculpture or music? My son is involved with the symphonic band. And we enjoy that very much. But we watched him grow up doing marching band and going to college and marching band, and so that's kind of because when it comes to art, I'm not it. So that's why I love talking to individuals like yourselves who are plugged into that, and there may be some out there who may not realize the art that is here in Gaston County.
Yeah. I don't know. Do you want to?
No, go ahead.
I would definitely say like theater and film production.
Sure.
Those are forms of art, right?
Oh, absolutely.
There's literary artists, authors and writers who are also artists as well. I feel like we don't think about that. And I think that especially I want to say maybe Gastonia, I feel like there's a passion for public art as well, or public art installations. People want to kind of see that. I don't know if you want to add anything else. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, I think, that's the thing. It's like, when we say Arts Council, I think people do think of visual art. Like, they think of paintings.
Somebody sitting in front of an easel.
Yeah.
That's probably what comes to mind for the amateur like myself.
Yeah. But, we support theater, we support dance, we support music. And we have all of that in our county. We have classical music. We have, the folks that do the ballet. We have a choral society. So, I think again, it's I think whatever your kind of niche is, like there's something here in Gaston County for you.
Even the type of art that you do, right? Like you do the needle threading,
Fiber
art. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what's it called?
Fiber art.
Okay.
So embroidery and
Understood. Got it.
punch needle and weaving. And,
Yeah.
all of those things.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, see, that's just that term. I'm like, I have no idea what that is. See, that's the point
Yeah.
to me. That's the point of having this conversation.
Yeah. We have a board member who's a pottery artist
Okay.
as well.
Yeah.
We have a board member who also does African art as well, like fabric art, furniture, right? There's
wow.
a lot of,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I think I've been exposed to this through my community involvement and doing this podcast for, gosh, over 4 years now. But I think the typical Gaston County resident who is getting up, going to work every day, coming home, doing their thing, that's my point, is that they don't know about the little theater or the Gaston Symphonic Band or the Choral Society or what you guys are doing, week to week or supporting week to week. So that's kind of the main point for doing this and having individuals like you on to talk about. So what haven't I asked that I should have asked? Anything else you guys want to share? I mean, we got a few more questions. Uh-oh.
I was going to ask, why is it so important for us to support the arts?
Oh, that's an obvious question that's too obvious for me to think of.
I think,
If you didn't hear that question, for our listeners, it was, what's the point? Why should we support the arts? Why is it so important to support the arts?
well, I think right now it's more important than ever to support the arts. We are unfortunately seeing, arts get cut, the arts funding get cut. And so I think, uh, every dollar counts. It's that old adage, but it's true, right? That's the thing that helps us, keep the email turned on. We don't have a physical location, so we don't have a light bill to pay. But I think, the thing with art, I always say is, it's the thing that you may not notice, right? You may not notice on your drive home, but like when it's gone, the world seems a little less, just a little less. It seems a little more gray. And so I think, really thinking about, the different ways to support art, whether it's public art, whether it's, supporting a local artist and buying, from a local potter or, somebody that has made something versus buying something at a, giant mass produced corporation. Those things, really all serve our community more, right? And I think, when you look at art, it uplifts, it brings joy. And, I've heard stories of like, people just going through incredibly dark times and, even reading a comic book, right? Like that's graphic design and that's graphic art, right? And so, things like that really just speak to our souls and spark joy, are the things that get us through the tough times. And so I think, making sure that those things don't go to the wayside, and that they are uplifted is just really vital to being human.
Yeah. And also kids need art exposure and art education. Like a lot of kids are interested in the arts. And I know sometimes parents don't think that, oh, can my kid survive being an artist? But sometimes that's a real strong passion for kids. And
The
so,
stereotype of the starving artist is a real thing, isn't it?
yeah,
That image or stereotype.
yeah. And but there's so many opportunities to work inside of the arts and also foster your own kind of passion for the arts. So it's a way to do it. But I think kids need exposure and to say like, oh, this is okay. If you love this, it's okay to pursue a career in it. And just like when I was young, I didn't have an example of a voiceover artist in high school or in middle school, but I had exposure later in life. But if kids see that early, maybe they can be an animation voiceover artist or
Right. Yeah.
something like that. And so I think that art exposure and education is really important because it even helps kids learn.
So this might not be a fair question. Well, let me back up before I forget this. But I do think being an engineer by training, art is such a foundational piece of so many things that we don't realize. Because I would argue that even math is the foundation for so many things within art, music and structure and just so many things. So I guess when I was young doing that concept was so far from my brain that I just, I had no idea. What about, this might be a dirty word in the art world. But what about, how is AI impacting the art world? If we need to cut this, go back and delete this question, I can.
I think it's a very deep conversation right now because I think you have to look at,
Let
what
me rephrase. Does the art world in general look at that as a negative?
I think it's divided.
Okay.
I think you have
Because in our industry, we're kind of split too with
yeah.
what's going on with it. Yes.
I think you have people that, can see it as a good tool for, helping as an assistant, right? To
Sure.
bounce ideas off of, or
things like that. Assistant's a good way to put that.
Yeah, but I think, it's like anything. When you use it too much, or, it goes too far, right? And so I was looking at a coloring book the other day, and I was like flipping through the pages, and I was like, this whole thing is AI, because half of the people in the coloring book had 6 fingers. Like, and so it's like, when you
And it wasn't mythology, right?
No. And that kind of thing can be a great disservice, right? So, you almost, as a person who thinks that you're supporting art, like, and an artist, you're getting deceived, right? And then, that is taking money out of, working artists' pockets. So I think, it just depends on how it's being used. But again, I think the whole art world is like, divided. There's probably more people that are like...
It's still early enough that it's kind of like our industry. We just really don't know what to do with it. We don't know what to think about it. I said it's top of mind for me because just this past Tuesday, I sat in an all-day class out of town on how to apply AI to my industry. And it was both interesting and dumb and scary. You know what I mean? It was fascinating more than anything else. And I left there going, well, yeah, I can see how we can use it. But then I'm like, gosh, I don't know. It was just interesting, and I'll just leave it at that, because there's so many unanswered questions, and it's moving so fast. Like in our industry, it's moving so fast. Contractors in general, we don't know what to do with it. It's part of the problem.
I think when it comes to art, like, again, it's looking at how it's being used, and I think because it's moving so fast that as a society, it's going to be up to us to decide like what's morally acceptable, right? Like,
sure.
Is that morally and ethically acceptable to be utilizing that when it's, taking the work of, an artist?
Oh, sure.
Yeah, I think artists don't want to be replaced, right? We don't want AI to replace
No one wants
us,
to be replaced.
right? But I think using it as an assistant, or for us to be more productive in some ways, I think that's important. But I think we, as humans, we can all see like the authenticity in something, and see something that's genuine. And so I think that's what we connect to.
Slow down. I think if you slow down at all, you can see the potential issues, right? In everything, especially. And I would actually probably say, especially art.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So maybe I should have asked that question. Sorry. It's just interesting because it's top of mind. It's top of mind on so many people, so many discussions, and so many things right now that, who knows, 5 years from now, I have no idea. So anything else that I should have asked, and I interrupted you when I asked that question? Sorry.
No, you're good.
I think, well, I'll just say this quickly. On our website, when you go to the About Us page, at the bottom, there will be our community presentation that talks about the community assessment we did, our goals, and kind of our goals both externally in the community and also internally, and how we're trying to improve as an organization. And then we have our Arts Impact Report. What page is that on our website?
I think it's on the Arts Impact Report
page. It is. Excuse me.
That was awkward.
All right,
but funny.
Yeah, I have a lot going on, guys. But no, our Arts Impact Report page, it's on there, and so it just talks about our impact in the community and each organization and the programs that they have and how much money we've been able to distribute in the county.
Last year, it was about $183,000 that we gave away to organizations.
Oh, wow.
Within the county. We did have the ARPA funding.
The shares, I appreciate that. Yeah.
We did have ARPA funding last year, so that was, really helpful for organizations, because that provided some assistance as far as like operational costs. Unfortunately, that program went away. But this year we've sub-granted $114,000, a little bit over $114,000 through the grassroots grant program. And so
Okay, well, good.
It's about yeah.
Yeah.
It's really and we'll be putting out, we've got all of our final reports due by the end of June. So we'll have the new Arts Impact report probably out by about August of this year.
Yeah.
And
And
so you'll be able to see kind of
Okay.
how folks are using that and spending that money in our county and what kind of programs they're doing.
yeah. And then we have our Grassroots Arts Program grant cycle opening July 1st. And then the deadline for that is August 25th. And so we'll have workshops the beginning of July as well. And then we'll have draft review in August as well before the deadline.
So I'm assuming, again, I've asked this question earlier, but for something like those grants, the website, or you post stuff, will you be posting stuff on social media for timing
Yes.
and all that, so people can see that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. All right. This is a question that I asked before when you guys were with us before, but I'm going to ask it again. But because again, this is a podcast about Gaston County and greater Gaston area. Besides the Arts Council, and Stephanie, I'll start with you, and we're going to go back and check and see if you have the same answer, by the way. No, I'm kidding. Besides the Arts Council, why is Gaston County such a great place?
I have really loved living here for the last 15 years because, it's such a vast county. It's so wide that like the eastern side to the western side are like you feel like you're in two completely different places, right? And so I think, being able to have that, just different experience while still in the same place, right? Is really cool. I love that we have, the river. I love that we have the mountain. I love that we have the trails. I think one of the other questions, and I'm just going to throw this in here, but one of the books that I've been reading is Night Magic by Leanne Hanyon. And, it really just talks about like looking at nature at night, right? And so I think, knowing that we're so close to Charlotte and the city and everything, but we still have this amazing identity as much as we're growing and bringing new people in, but that we're preserving so much of nature and that we're preserving those experiences. And so, I think to me that ties in with my love of art because I think, looking at, the beauty of nature and art and the way they work together is really cool. But I think, the way that Gaston County is growing and how we're handling that growth is really kind of it's kind of nerdy for me to say that, but I think it's like really cool to see right now. Like I think that's very like economic development, kind of question. But I think, how we handle that growth is really cool. And I think how all of the different towns are still maintaining, these small town identities with, their amazing, festivals and just, precious downtowns. And I think, that's the thing that everybody wants to hold on to as you see growth. And so how you balance that and how we're doing that is really cool.
Oh, that's terrific. Wow. That's a tough one to follow.
Well,
So even though
was
you're
gonna-
from Charlotte, I'm going to ask you the
Yeah.
same question.
Yeah. I was going to say a lot of like some of the similar things. I'm impressed with the growth, and especially how many people want to move here and just the reasons why they want to move here. I think it's great. And also, I've been really surprised at all the small arts committees that are here in Gaston County. And just I'm impressed with all the things that they do. I really sometimes can't keep up. Like, I'm like, wow, they're doing this because we're trying to promote their stuff as well. And I think I'm impressed with just the art scene here and the opportunities here to continue to grow. I think it's wonderful.
All right. Well, I appreciate that. Of course, I'm a homer for Gaston County. And I think I don't know if it's related to art, but just in general, when you live in somewhere for a long time, like I have, you can get either comfortable or complacent, and you can miss the things that are right here around us, right? I do get to travel a little bit, but, I always say, man, I've never found a place I want to go live. I love traveling and seeing other places, but we got to make sure we're opening our eyes to the art and the beauty and the things that are right here in front of us. So my last question for you guys, and I'll start with you, Jessica, on this one. I think before I probably asked, what advice would you give your 20-year-old self, but I'm not going to do that one. We can go back and listen to that one, but it's a similar type question. So if you could have coffee with one historical person, who would it be and why?
Historical person, so someone who's passed away.
Well, it doesn't have to be.
I would say Malcolm X. I would really say him. I think
He's a very interesting character.
yeah, I mean, I just think that he has so much courage and tenacity, and I think I would want to sit down and talk with him about how he just continued to stride forward, even though he had a lot of like pressure against him, and so I think it would probably be him.
Okay.
First thing that came in mind.
No, that's
there.
great. I wonder how accurate the Denzel Washington movie is about his life, and
Right.
because it's a good movie
Yeah.
if you've never seen it. But I've learned to always question the accuracy sometimes.
Right.
Of,
Right, because it's Hollywood.
Yeah, how much or what do they call it? Artistic liberty they take with some of the historical movies. Anyway, but if you're not, I would encourage people to read up on him.
Yeah.
I have read a little bit and saw the movie and read a little bit about him. So he is an interesting man at an interesting time in our country.
Yeah, I think it's important for us to speak up about like justice and like
Yeah.
equality. I think those
It's
things
probably-
are important.
For people my age and y'all's age, it might be hard to comprehend the time that they were living in.
Right.
It's just different. Stephanie, how would you follow that one? Jeez.
Well, I would say, not a past historical figure,
Okay.
but somebody that I know will be a future historical figure. Obviously Miss Dolly Parton. Like,
Oh, wow.
I could have coffee with her. Like,
Yeah.
life made. I think she's just she's somebody that, obviously has done so much with her life, but also has given so much with all that she has done. And so I think, everything from supporting, the imagination, libraries, and, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I was lucky involved with United Way for many years. And so I got to see that firsthand.
Yeah.
Her Imagination Library. And it's
Yeah.
active here in Gaston County, yeah.
Yeah. I very, very long time ago, things to tell my 20-year-old self, was able to do an internship out in Nashville, and the folks that I were with were housed in the same kind of little small office building as like her personal assistant. And so
Really?
I never got to meet her, but I knew her personal assistant and his assistant.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, but yeah, just everything that I learned about her. I also did my 4th grade book report on Dolly Parton, so I'm a lifelong stan.
Oh, well, that's terrific. Well, listen, I appreciate you sharing those. That's an interesting question that that I've asked a few times. I've asked that to returning guests often, just because I ask a lot of the same question because I'm such an amateur. But I think that's an interesting question for a lot of people to answer. So this has been really good. So any last words? Anything else you guys would like to share before we close this episode out?
I want to know what historical figure you would sit down with.
Well, there's 3 or 4. The most common answer that I probably give, and because I've studied him so much, is Abraham Lincoln. I just find him to be one of the most interesting people ever, for lots of different reasons. I mean, the obvious answer too, as a Christian, would be Jesus, but that's cheating to me. That's too obvious. But someone like Abraham Lincoln, just not just his political, his life, things he overcome. He was and I've read multiple books about him, listened to all kinds of podcasts about him. He's just an interesting, very interesting guy, and how and of course, and most people think the obvious thing that he accomplished being president and then being assassinated, but there were so many other things about his character and what he had to overcome to get there, and the serendipitous things that happened to get him, to Washington. It's just really interesting. So I appreciate you asking that. So anything besides the website? So we got the website, we've got social media. Anything else to share before we close this one out?
I think just to say, that, we're here for supporting the arts in all of Gaston County. And so I think, if you're an artist, if you have a love of art, if you want to talk about art, reach out to us. We're happy to grab coffee with anybody.
Okay.
Not just historical figures. We love to just spread the word and really work to uplift our entire arts economy that we're building.
Go to our website and subscribe to our newsletter. Sign up and become a member. Support us. And
Have we already covered this? So what's the greatest need? Is it everything we've already talked about with volunteers, board members, memberships, funding, just all that all of that and above?
Yeah, I think, really our biggest need is, most nonprofits. Like right now we're looking at funding,
Sure.
right? And so being able to have the funding to support our work and continue our work, we really want to grow into, having more ways of supporting financially artists and art organizations within the county, right? So we talked about grassroots supporting programs, but really having our own funding to support public art, having our own funding to support artists, and having our own funding to support operations of other organizations when they need it is really our long-term goal. And so, we're again just we're at that roller coaster point, right? Where like we need to get to the top. And so that's kind of the biggest thing that's going to help us make that leap forward.
All right. Well, very good. Well, I'll be interested to watch and see how you guys continue to progress. And I appreciate the work that you do. And I'm going to finish with my own quote, which is, I wasn't really, sometimes I pick these based on the guests, but I didn't really today. But what y'all were talking about and talking about specifically with someone like Abraham Lincoln, I think it does apply. A gentleman named Tobias Wolff said, "We are made to persist. That's how we find out who we are." So persistence, I think y'all been doing some persisting over the last year and a half or so. And that's what's required. We like to think in this world we live in, there's so many, what's the phrase people like to use? So many hacks and things want to happen so quickly. But my experience is that real long-term success and progress happens over longer periods of time, small steps at a time. There's rarely these giant leaps that happen. Occasionally there is, but it's really about persistence in the journey. And again, that's where we can look back and say, wow, we have done a lot. Sometimes you can get lost, though. You don't realize how far you've come when it's just those small steps at a time. So I would encourage you to remember that you're further along than a year and a half ago.
We needed that, yeah.
Okay, so I mean, and you know what? It is important to slow down and stop every now and then, even within our business. I think our community has come a long way in the last 15 years. Our business, sometimes we're in the middle of it. We're dealing with all these day-to-day things. You're like, God, we're not doing anything. We're not making any progress. All of a sudden, we have. So again, yeah, keep that in mind, because when you're in the middle of it, it's easy to lose sight of the progress that you have made. So don't get discouraged there, because you're just hearing you talk is different than a year and a half ago. So well done. So, to our listeners out there, thanks so much for taking time to listen to today's episode. Please continue to spread the word if you can about the podcast. And please don't hesitate to contact us here at our email address, which is podcast@gastonsgreat.com. We're always looking for suggestions for future podcast topics and guests. You can continue to find the podcast and subscribe at the website, gastonsgreat.com, or anywhere you listen to the podcast. And please follow us on all our social media platforms. And many thanks again to Jessica and Stephanie for being our guests today. Gaston's Great is produced and brought to you by Naomi Hunt and Amy Anderson from GSM Services. I'm your host, Stephen Long. Thanks again for hanging out with us, and please keep coming back to hear more reasons why Gaston's great.